the final year examinations, okay? Now in paper 1, there are certain topics that we can expect. And the first topic is what we call the algebra. Okay, so besides algebra, because that's where we find the types of numbers, okay, we also find equations. No, equations are completely different, but we can have something like rounding off, and then we can have irrational numbers. So all those fall under the algebra part of it. And as much as we try to also break this down into what we call the equations, because that is still under algebra, we also have the factorization. Okay, different methods of factorization that is still under algebra. In most cases, it is usually the first question. And then next, we have what we call the exponents and indices. There's also inequalities under algebra, but it's fine. So exponents and indices, besides the exponents, we have what we call the number patterns. And then from the number patterns, we have what we call the functions. Functions are basically the graphs. Okay, the parabolas, the hyperbolas, and exponentials, and all of those things, how to sketch them, how to analyze, and how to interpret them. Then besides the functions, we also have what we call the finance, okay, financial mathematics. And then lastly, we have what we call probability under paper 1. Okay, so I'm just going to use this paper just as a guide as we prepare. So let's dive through. So they're telling us we have a total of 100 marks and the duration is usually 2 hours. Now, when you look at the instructions, they're telling us that we have 9 questions that we need to answer, and all of them must be answered. You need to number the questions according to the paper. You need to show all the calculations and the graphs used as in the steps that you used in determining the answers. Answers only will not give you the full marks, and then you need to use a scientific calculator that is approved. All answers must be rounded off 2 decimals unless they tell us to do otherwise. Diagrams are not accurate. And then we have 1 diagram page. All information pages with the formulae are included. Okay, now when you look at all these instructions, there is no instruction that tells us that we must start with question 1 then go to question 2. So as a learner that is strategic and that is aiming towards at least doing most of the work in the paper, I would urge you start with any question that you feel comfortable with. In that way, you're going to use very limited time on such questions, and then you'll have more time for the rest of the questions. Okay, so here we go with question number 1. They are telling us that we must factorize the following expressions completely. Okay, leave your answers in the simplest form. And so 1.1.1 is x squared minus 16x plus 15. So what type of method are we going to use? I mean the factorization method. So what we can see is this is a trinomial. Okay, it's a quadratic trinomial. Quadratic trinomial deals with what we call the product and then the sum of the expression. So this 15 here represents our product. And then the negative 16 represents the sum of the expression. So which numbers do we multiply to give us 15? Can be 1 times 15. Can have negative 1 times negative 15. Negative 3 times negative 5, or just a 3 times 5. And then which pair will give me a sum of negative 16? So the only combination that's going to give me a 16 is going to be this. So I come down, open my 2 brackets, then I'll say x with a negative 1, x with a negative 15, and then that becomes our answer. Then 1.1.2, we're seeing a into 6a plus 2b minus 3 into 3a plus b. Now, what I notice is that inside this bracket, there's still something common. There's a 2, there's a 2 within the 6. So let's take out the 2. Let's factorize out the 2. So we're going to have 2a into, we're going to have 3a plus a b minus 3 into 3a plus a b. The aim is to create the same bracket as this one. Okay, and then we have it. So let's take out that same bracket, which is 3a plus b into 2a minus 3. And then that becomes our answer as well. And then 1.2, simplify. Now there's a difference between factorizing and then simplifying. Simplifying simply means we need to break down whatever we have, okay? Now this is an exponential kind of expression. The only way to do that is let's break down the 27, express 27 as an exponent. Okay, so it's going to be 3 cubed, but then we are multiplying this by 2 over 3. Okay, then when you simplify this, it's going to be 3 times 2 over 3. So this 3 cancels the 3. We have 3 squared left. 3 squared is 3 times 3, which gives us a 9. You get your 2 marks for that. Then, with this second one, we have a whole lot of terms, and then we need to apply factorization for us to simplify this fraction. So with the first one, yes, we can have x plus 3 over x minus 3. We are multiplying by, when you factorize the difference of 2 cubes, we're going to have x minus 3, and then we have x squared plus, what's 3 times x is going to be 3x plus, what is 3 squared is going to be a 9. Okay, I'm dividing this by x squared minus 9 is a difference of 2 squares, meaning it's x minus 3, and then x plus 3. And then remember, we cannot divide fractions in maths, so we need to change the sign to multiplication. Okay, so that's going to be times, then whatever is on top goes down, whatever is down must come at the bottom. So that's going to be x minus 3 over, when we look at this, are we able to factorize anything? I doubt, so I'm just going to leave it as that. Now, since everything is been sorted out, I always prefer to put brackets for such cases, okay, so that I don't get confused to say I'll cancel out the x alone and what, okay. Now, the next step is just for us to cancel what is common. So when you're canceling, it's usually the numerator and denominators, okay? So this cancels that. This x minus 3 can cancel x minus 3 down there. Then this one, x minus 3, cancels that. And then this must cancel what is down there. So everything is gone, meaning that we are only left with a 1. Okay, when you divide the same thing on top as what is down, you only get a 1 as your final answer. And then 1.2.3. Whenever we have exponential expressions that have a minus or a plus, the deal needs to be around factorization, okay? Let's take out what is common. So if I were to split this up on top, it's going to be 3x times 3 minus 3x multiplied by 3 squared over 3 to the x multiplied by 3 squared plus a 3 to the x. What is common to the top is just going to be 3 to the x. And then if I factorize that, I'll have 3 minus, I know that 3 squared is the same as a 9, over what is common, I'll have 3x. And then I'll be left with 3 squared, which is a 9, plus 1. Because I've removed this, I'll be left with a 1. So the 3 to the x and the 3 to the x will cancel each other out. What is 3 minus 9? It's going to be a negative 6. 9 plus 1 is going to be a 10. Simplify this by looking for what is common. So it's a negative 3 over 5. So this becomes our final answer. Okay, then question 2, which is the equations. So this equation is exponential. So with exponential, we need to get rid of this number, move it to that side. So I'll say that 3 to the 2x is equal to 18. Is that the question? Yes. So divide both sides by 2, meaning that 3 to the 2x is equal to 9. Then let's express 9 with a base of 3. So 3 to the 2x is the same as 3 squared. Drop the bases. 2x is a 2. Then divide both sides by 2. X becomes 1. Okay, so that is 2.1. Then we go to the next question, 2.1.2, which is the algebraic inequality. Step number 1, we can eliminate this denominator. So in other words, multiply by 3 and then multiply by 3 so that this 3 cancels. So I'll be left with a 2x minus 1 is greater or equal to 3, and that is 6x plus a 3. Now, when you're solving algebraic inequalities, it's just the same as the equations, okay, whereby we have to isolate the unknown. So let's move the 6 that side. It's a 2x minus 6x is greater or equal to a 3 plus 1. So 2x minus 6 will give us a negative 4x is greater or equal to 4. Then let's divide through by a negative. Now, the moment we attempt to divide through by a negative, the inequality signs must change. So that's a negative 1. So that's what the question wanted. Do we need the number line? No, we don't. All right, then 2.1.3, we have 2x squared. 2.1.3, 2x squared minus x minus 10 is equal to 0. Okay, so this is a quadratic equation. So same story, we can factorize, okay? Product, sum, or you can just use your factors straight away. So for me to get 2x squared, I need a 2x, and then I also need x here. Now for me to get a 10, and then a 1 here, can I use 5 and 2? I think that would make sense, whereby I can put a 5 here, then I put a 2 there. So that I know that 2x and 2 gives me a 4x. 5 and this gives me a 5x, but I want a negative there. So we will say negative and a positive. If that is the case, meaning the first bracket is equal to 0, or x plus 2 is equal to 0. In this case, I'll move the 5 that side, and then I'll get my x as a 5 over 2. Or I'll move the 2 that side, meaning that x becomes a negative 2. So that is how that would have been worked out for 4 marks. Then 2.2, how much must be added to this so that it will be equal to that? So it's like somebody asking you that if you have a 2 plus something is equal to 8, how much must be added to a 2 to give you 8? So what we're going to do, we're just going to subtract that this last expression minus the first one. So I'll say that our x, okay, because the last bracket is x plus 1, x minus 25. X plus 1, x minus 25. We are subtracting x plus 5, then x minus 5. Okay, so let's open this up and then we see. So that's going to be x squared minus 25x plus x minus 25. We are subtracting. That's going to be x squared minus 25 because it's the difference of 2 squares, okay? When you open this up, it's x squared minus 24x minus 25 minus x squared plus 25. So this is going to cancel with that because it's a positive x squared and a negative x squared. Okay, so that one cancels. even the 25, one is negative, one is positive, cancels out. So the final answer is going to be just a negative 24x. Okay, negative 24x. So that is what must be added. For 4 marks also, ne? So sweet, so sweet. 2.3, simultaneous equations. So with simultaneous, we have two methods. Ne? We have elimination, we also have substitution. So in this case, I'm going to use substitution. So I'll call this equation 1, I'll call that equation 2. And then I can use equation 1 and take this 3x to that other side, meaning that y is going to be a negative 2 plus a 3x. I'll call this equation 3, and then substitute equation 3 into equation number 2. So where I see y, I'll replace the all of that. So it's 7x minus 2 into negative 2 plus 3x is equal to 8. So now we have just one unknown, which is favorable. So it's 7x. This and that will give us a plus 4. This and that is a negative 6x is equal to 8. Then we know that 7 minus 6 is just 1x. Let's move this 4 to that side. It's going to be 8 minus 4, which gives us a 4. So our x is a 4. To get the value of y, substitute into equation 3, meaning it's a negative 2 plus 3 times 4. So negative 2 plus 12, which gives us just a 10. Okay, so that is how we would obtain those 20 marks. So far we have 33 marks out of 100. Ne? Question number 3, number patterns. Number patterns. In each diagram below, there are shaded squares and white squares. Okay, write down the general formula or the general term for the number of shaded squares. So let's count. How many shaded squares do we have here? So it's 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So these are multiples of 3, né? Meaning that the Tn is just going to be 3n. Okay. Then determine the number of shaded squares in diagram 300. So where there is 3, where there is n, substitute with the 300. So 3 times 300, that gives us 900 squares. Okay, and then which diagram will consist of 1.5 shaded squares? So where there is Tn, I'll put 1.5. So 1.5 is equivalent to 3n. Then I'll divide both sides by 3, meaning that our n becomes 500. So position 500 will give us 1.5 squares. 3.2, if the pattern terms continue in the same way, what will be the 383rd letter? Wow, what a question. Okay, so how do we answer a question of this nature? So we need to start by understanding the knowledge of odd positions and even positions. So what I will do, we know that the word terms is having just 5 letters, okay? So my question is, how many 5s can I obtain from this? So 383 divided by 5, okay? So 383 divided by 5, if I punch this into my calculator, okay, so we're getting 76 full words, okay? And then what is the remainder? So 76 times 5 gives me 380. So meaning that there is a remainder of 3. What this means that we're going to get 76 full words of the word terms, né? But then there's going to be a remainder of 3. So in position number 3 of the word, 1, 2, 3. So letter R will be in the 383rd position. Okay, so that is that. Then 3.3 consider the following pattern of 8, 15, 22, and 29, meaning that we are adding just sevens. Ne? Write down the next two terms. When you put a 7 there, we're going to get a 36. Okay, 36 plus 7, we end up with a 40. Is it a 43? Yeah, something like that. Okay, then describe the pattern in your own words. So we are saying that we add 7 to the previous term, obtain the next term. Add 7 to the previous term for you to obtain the next term. Okay, and then question four. They're telling us Mark has booked himself a hotel room for how many nights? For 3 nights during the visit to the New York. The exchange rate was $1, cost 9 rand and 10 cents. The cost per night was $450. Wow. How much did 3 nights cost him in rands? So it's up to you how you want to do this. We can start by converting the 450 to rands and then multiply by 3. Or if not, start by multiplying the 450 by 3 and then we do the conversion. So if I say 450 times 3, because that's the cost per night, okay? So what's 450 times 3? That is $1,350. That's how much he's going to spend for 3 nights. But if $1 is 9 rands and 10 cents, then how about $1,350? So we're going to say 1,350 over 1 multiplied by 9,10. So 9,10, this guy is going to spend a whooping 12,285 rands altogether. All right, then 4.2. Okay, so let's leave Mark, who is living large for 3 nights, paying that much. Okay, 4.2. The television set cost 20,000. Belinda buys it on hire purchase. She traded in the old TV for this much and also paid a deposit of 2,000. She made monthly installments of 900 for a period of 2 years. Calculate the total interest that was paid. Wow. Okay, so if Belinda decided to trade in this one, it simply means that out of the 20,000, okay, she was supposed to pay, what's 20,000 minus 3,000? That's going to be 17,000. Okay, so in other words, this is what the TV is going to cost her from the pockets. Okay, then from the 17,000, since she also paid a deposit of 2,000, we take it off, meaning that the loan amount is going to be 15,000. Okay, so this 15,000, she needs to look for it. How? We don't know. Okay. Now, the fact that she's been paying 900 rands, okay, so we are saying the total monthly installments is going to be 900 multiplied by 2 years, but each year has 12 months. Okay, so when I multiply that, what do we get? So 900 times 2 times 12 gives me 21,600. Okay, so 21,600 is what she pays in total. So meaning that for us to get the interest, we shall get the 21,600 minus the 15,000. Okay, so subtract 15,000, meaning that she paid 6,600 rands in interest. This is the extra that she paid. Okay, so that is how we would have gone about with this 4.2.1. 4.2.2, calculate the simple interest rate. So with the simple interest rate, it's a two-way thing, okay? We know that the P can be the 15,000. Our A, the total that she paid was the 21,600. Okay, we're looking for the I, the N is 2 years. Alternatively, if we use the interest amount, which is P times the rate times the period N, we shall have the 6,600 is equal to the 15,000 that was borrowed, multiplied by the rate, multiplied by the 2 years. Okay, so 6.6 is equal to 15 and 15 is going to give us 30,000 R. Divide both sides by 30,000. Why don't I divide this by 100 once? But it's fine, I'll sort it out. Divide by 30,000. So this cancels that. From my calculator, if I punch the 6.6 divided by 30,000, I'm getting 0.22 is equal to R. Then multiply by 100, meaning that it's at 22%. If we are to use the original formula, we're going to have a 21,600 is equal to the 15,001 plus. The I is what I'm looking for, so I'll say 2I. Divide by 15,000 over 15,000. This cancels that. 21,600 divided by 15,000 gives us 1.44 is equal 1 plus 2I. Let's move the one that side. It's a subtraction, so 0.44 is equal twice I, then divide both sides by 2. I becomes 0.22 multiplied by 100, which is a 22%. Okay, so that is how the interest would be calculated also. Question number 5, which is to do with the functions. They want us to sketch the graphs. F of x is x negative x squared plus 4. And then g of x is 2 to the x plus 3 on the same set of axes on the diagram page provided. Okay. Now, before you even start sketching, you need to know what type of graph are you dealing with. So anything that is x squared, this is a parabola. Okay. And then anything where the exponent is x, this is an exponential graph. So let's go to the graph page and see negative x squared plus 4. Okay, negative x squared plus 4. The other one is 2 to the x plus a 3. Is that correct? Good. So there are different steps, so there are different items that we need to look out for. Some people prefer to use the table method. I mean, there's no problem with that, okay? But I prefer to use the approach that is going to give me all the marks. I am not saying that the table method is not going to give you the marks, but there are certain aspects that we look out for. Number one, we know that this 4 is the y-intercept, okay? So look for the intercepts. Y-intercept is a 4. And then I need to look for the x-intercept. The y must be a 0. So negative x squared plus 4 is equal to 0. This one is like a difference of 2 squares. If I say x4 minus x squared, it's also the same thing as this, okay? So that will be a 2 minus x, and then a 2 plus x is equal to 0. So this first bracket will give me x as a 2. Second bracket will give me x as a negative 2. So I have my points that I need, this intercept and then the x-intercepts. Now, all I know is that the a is a negative, meaning that this graph is going to be a frown. Then with this exponential, since the 2 is greater than 1, the graph is going to be increasing. But this 3 is the asymptote. Okay, asymptote is a 3. And then what else do we know? We need to find the y-intercept. So for y-intercept, we said x must be a 0. So 2 to the 0 plus 3, anything the exponent of 0 will always be a 1. Then 1 plus 3, we get a 4. So I have what I need as well. So let's do the sketching. Okay, so we said -2, +2, and then the graph is passing through 4. So just sketch. I don't know how you're gonna do it, but just with a free hand. Oops, graph is looking weird, but it's fine. At least the shape is a parabola. And then with exponential, the first thing I need to do is indicate this asymptote, which is a +3. So asymptotes are indicated using a dotted line. Okay. Then we say the y-intercept is going to be a 4, and then the graph must just be moving towards the asymptote, but also increasing in that sort of direction. So then I'll call this my G. So that's all I have to do for me to get all the marks that we awarded for that. How many marks? 5 marks. Wow, wonderful. Then write down the coordinates of the turning point. So turning point, we say that's when the graph is changing phase. In other words, the highest point for this case, which is 0 and then a 4. So that's going to be 0 ... 4. Okay, since they want the coordinates. Then the graph h of x, which is x squared minus 4, is obtained by transforming this first graph. Describe the transformation. So what we are saying is that if originally it was a frown, now it is a smile. Okay, but then instead of it touching the +4, it's now touching the -4. What happened simply means that we flipped it about the x-axis. So it's basically a reflection, okay, about the x-axis. Okay, so that is what we have to do. Question number 6, the graphs of f of x is 4 over x minus 2, g of x is mx plus c are drawn. A is 4 and 4, B is unknown, D is 0 and 4, or 0, -4, and E are points on G. So we have B is the x-intercepts for both, okay, and then points of intersection of that. AC is parallel to the y-axis with C, okay. Determine the values of M and C. So what does M and C stand for? So this 4 over x represents a hyperbola, okay? And then mx plus c is a straight line. So with a straight line, the M represents the gradient, and then the C represents the y-intercept. So we already have the y-intercept as a -4. Only thing we need is just the gradient. So how do we find the gradient? We say change in y over change in x. So if I call this x1, y1, it's going to be x2, y2. So it's going to be 4 minus -4 over 4 minus 0. So 8 over 4, which gives us a 2. They want us to get the coordinates or the values of M and C. So M is going to be a 2, C is going to be -4. Then write down the range of f. So range simply means y values. And for a hyperbola, y should be an element of real numbers, but y should never be equal to the asymptote. And what is the asymptote? The asymptote is -2. Okay, so y should never be a -2. Then determine the coordinates of the points of intersection of the two graphs algebraically. So when they talk about, or when they ask for algebraic sort of interpretation, we need to solve the two graphs. In other words, we have to equate the two equations. So the equation is 4 over x minus 2. Is that correct? Yes. Then the other one is a 2x minus 4. So let me jot it this side. We are saying 4 over x minus 2 is equal to 2x minus 4. Step number 1, get rid of this x, multiply through by x. Okay, so times x, times x, times x, times x. So this cancels that. It's going to be a 4 minus 2x. This is 2x squared minus 4x. Then let's create a quadratic with a standard equation. Move that one that side. Actually, let me move everything to one side. So it's a 2x squared minus 4x plus 2x. When the 4 crosses, a minus 4 is equal to 0. So it's a 2x squared minus 2x minus 2 is equal to 0. We can divide through by 2, meaning we have x squared minus x minus, why is this 2 getting into a 4 or the 4 getting into a 2? So it's supposed to be minus 2 is equal to 0. Then let's factor out what is common. So x and x, you can say minus 2 plus 1. So x is a 2 or x is a negative 1. Is that true? X is a negative 1 or x is a 2 somewhere there. Okay, what does the question want? They want the coordinates, the points, so which means we need to find the y values as well. So I can substitute those into the equation of a straight line, which is 2x minus 4. So my y is going to be 2 by 2, which is 4. 4 minus 4 is a 0. Or if x is a negative 1, this is going to be a negative 6. Okay, so that is what the question technically wanted. Then determine the values of x, where g of x is greater or equal to f of x. So where do we find? Okay, this is a negative 1. Then this is a 2. So where do we find the graph of g to be above the one of f? So you see this region here. G is above. Okay. And then I think it's just that where the graph is above, because this side, it's below. Okay, and then here we have an asymptote which cannot be necessarily crossed. So I'm going to say x must be greater or equal to 2. And then they want the length of AC. Now for us to get the distance between the graphs, the graph at this point AC that is above is G, and then F is below. So we're going to get the G of X minus the F of X. The G of X is 2x minus 4. We are subtracting the F of X, which is 4 over x minus 2. You simplify that, 2x minus 4 over x plus 2. We don't need to simplify this. All we have to do is replace x with the x value along this line, which is a 4. So it's a 2 by 4 minus 4 minus 4 over 4 plus 2. So 8 minus 4 minus 1 plus 2. Simplify this. That's a 4 minus 1, which is a 3. 3 plus 2, which is 5. So that's going to give us just 5 units. All right, so that is 6.5. Question number 7. Given the equation of this exponential, they are giving us some conditions. Okay, so a is between 0 and 2. Then the range of the graph is above -2. So -2 is an asymptote. And then 1, 0 is a point on the graph. Write down the equation of the asymptote. So y is going to be -2, meaning that this q represents a -2 because the graph should never be cutting or touching that -2. Then they want the full equation. So let's do the substitution. So if a times b to the x minus 2 is equal to our y or h of x. Then they told us that this point is on the graph. So where x is a 1, y is a 0. Okay, how do we simplify that? So if y is a 0, but will that even make sense? Because that's going to be AB minus 2, meaning that AB is 2 itself, okay? Do we have any other point that we have? They're telling us that A should be between 0 and 2. What does that mean? Or how do we even go about something of that nature? Okay, so having obtained that, all I'll have to say is if A is a 1, because the question is going to be why are you derived? Because they told us it's A is between 0 and 2, and the only number between 0 and 2 should be a 1. Okay, it's not equal to 0, it's not equal to 2. So I'll say A is a 1, meaning that y is equal to 1 multiplied by b to the x minus 2. I think I can now do the substitution, okay, and apply the 0 and the 1 part. So 0 is b minus 2, meaning that b is going to be a 2 from here. If our a is a 1, meaning that b is a 2. So the equation is going to be 1, 2 to the x minus 2. And then they want us to get the y-intercept of h. So with the y-intercept, x must be a 0. Okay, so 2 to the 0 minus 2. This becomes 1 minus 2, which is a negative 1. So that is question number 7. Then question number 8, probability. Consider events A and B. Probability of A is this, probability of B is that. Probability of A and B is given as this. Determine whether the events are complementary. So the question is, what are complementary events? We know that complementary events are basically events that complete each other, meaning that if we add A plus B, we must get a 1. Okay, we have the probability of A, we have the probability of B. So let's add those two and see. So probability of A plus probability of B is going to be 0.43 plus 0.37. This gives us something like 0.8. But then they want us to determine whether they are complementary. Therefore, we're going to say A and B are not complementary. Okay, then 8.2, are the events A and B mutually exclusive? In other words, is their intersection equal to 0? Because events will only be mutually exclusive if A and B is a 0. But in this case, our A and B is a 0.15. Okay, it's not a not. So meaning that probability of A and B is not a 0, therefore not mutually exclusive. Okay, then 8.3, they want us to draw a Venn diagram to represent the above information. Okay, so this is 8.3 with the Venn diagram. Start with that box of yours. Since we are dealing with probabilities, so if A is 0.43, that entire circle must be 0.43. B, we say is a 0.37. This is 0.15. 5 what? 91. Okay. And then for us to get what is left in here, we just have to subtract. Okay. So when we subtract that, let me just get my calculator. So 0.43 minus 0.1591 gives me 0.2709. And then this side 0.37 minus 0.1591, that gives me a 0.2109. Okay, so, but now if we try to add up everything here, does it give us a 1? Remember we said we don't get a 1. So 270, but why am I doing that? 0.43 plus 0.2109. I get a 0.6 for something. Then when I subtract 1, I'm getting a 0.3591. So if I can represent this, then I have my Venn diagram for the marks that I need. So we have to represent even these people that don't take part in anything. Okay, so that is question number 8.3 for 4 marks. Then lastly, question number 9. Two different events A and B form part of an investigation. Probability of A is that, probability of B complement is that. So what is the probability of B? Let's start from there. 1 minus 3 over 5, which gives us 2 over 5. So B is 2 over 5. Then probability of A or B is 4 over 7. Find or determine the value of probability of not A. So not A will be 1 minus probability of A, meaning that 1 minus 2 over 3, we get 1 over 3. And then find the probability of B. We already found it here, which is a 2 over 5. And then find the probability of A and B. So you go back to the formula that tells you probability of A or B is the same as the probability of A plus the probability of B minus the probability of A and B. Substitute. Probability of A, we said it's 2 over 3. And then probability of B, we said it's a 2 over 5 minus what we are looking for should be equated to 4 over 7. So meaning that that's a 4 over 7. When I add up, okay, let's see, we are saying 2 over 3, okay, plus 2 over 5. That gives me 16 over 15 minus the probability of A and B. So if I have my 4 over 7, and then I subtract my answer, I'm getting negative 52 over 105 is equal to negative P, A, and B. Divide through by a negative, meaning the A and B is just a 52 over 105. And then if I change that to a decimal, it's a 0.495. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this paper. And I wish you guys all the best in your preparations. Let's meet when we meet. Bye-bye. Hello, welcome to yet another episode where I shall be looking at the preparation for the grade 10 mathematics paper 1 for the final year examinations. Okay. Now in paper 1, there are certain topics that we can expect. And the first topic is what we call the algebra. Okay, so besides algebra, because that's where we find the types of numbers, okay, we also find equations. No, equations are completely different, but we can have something like rounding off, and then we can have irrational numbers. So all those fall under the algebra part of it. And as much as we try to also break this down into what we call the equations, because that is still under algebra, we also have the factorization. Okay, different methods of factorization that is still under algebra. In most cases, it is usually the first